Alright, what's up everybody? So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Shure SM7B. I'm going to be giving you guys my advice on how to properly use the Shure SM7B and really get the most out of this microphone. Now, I understand that you guys enjoyed the tutorials that I put together, the reviews on the Art Pro MPA2. A lot of you guys responded to those videos that I made and said how helpful they were, so I figured why not do the same with the Shure SM7B. It is a very popular microphone, but I have noticed a lot of people incorrectly using it, and I really think that this video can clear up some of the confusion that is on the Shure SM7B. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight into the video. Now, the first of many things that I want to cover in this video is properly gain staging the Shure SM7B. Now, if you're like me and you read all your manuals that you get with your microphones and other audio equipment that you buy, you would know that they recommend at least 60 decibels of gain to properly use the Shure SM7B. That is to be able to use the SM7B on virtually any signal out there. With that being said, one of the common problems that I see people face when they use the Shure SM7B is noise problems. Now, here's the thing. Because this microphone requires so much gain, it also is more likely to introduce more noise into your recordings because you have to stress the preamps on your interface out much more than you would on a traditional condenser microphone. Because of this issue, companies out there have actually made products that are made to go with dynamic microphones that require more gain than traditional condenser microphones, which require far less gain than a dynamic microphone like the Shure SM7B. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard of some of these products or more than likely even own one of them, some of the more popular ones being the Cloud Lifter and the Fethead. But did you know, chances are, more than likely, the interface that you are currently using right now can supply enough gain to the Shure SM7B, and it would make almost no sense to be using a Cloud Lifter or a Fethead in your setup. If you are using an interface that can supply at least 60 decibels of gain and has an EIN of less than -129 and below, you do not need to use a Cloud Lifter or a Fethead. At that point, it would make zero sense to introduce either one into your chain, as they are doing nothing at that point. If you were to properly match up both the clips using the Fethead and your audio interface, match the level so they are exactly the same, you would notice that there is virtually no difference in the amount of noise that is recorded in your audio. That is why I personally do not use a Cloud Lifter or a Fethead. If I was to introduce one into my vocal chain, I would yield the exact same results that I would get by just plugging my microphone directly into my audio interface. Next, I want to talk about how to properly EQ the SM7B, because the one thing I have noticed with this microphone when I have used it on my voice in particular is that it sounded very dark. And in part, that is mostly due to the proximity effect, and the fact of the matter is that you have to speak close to this microphone because it is a dynamic microphone. For it to sound best, you really want to be on the microphone as close as you can. The further you get back, say I'm back here talking, it's going to sound very thin. So when you speak closer to the microphone, you're going to get the best results. Now, when you're speaking this close to the microphone, you're going to notice that it sounds a lot bassier. And I have a very simple trick on how you can eliminate that and make the mic sound more open and natural. Now, this is really going to depend on whether or not you have a deeper or a higher pitched voice. If you're like myself and you have a deeper pitched voice, this is really going to help with this microphone not sounding as bassy. If you're somebody who has a higher pitched voice, you're probably going to not use as much of this tip or any of it at all. I really find that if you have a higher pitch voice, your voice tends to fit better with this because this is a darker microphone. If you have a deeper voice, you're going to notice that you might need to boost the higher frequencies a little bit just to kind of even the playing field out, so to speak. What I like to do with this microphone is boost right at 5K and 8K. At 5K, I usually boost by about 1 to 2 dB, and then at 8K, anywhere from 2 to 4 dB. I usually listen to the audio, just kind of play around with that and see which sounds best to me. 9 times out of 10, that simple little correction will make this microphone sound so much more open and natural. However, there are times where I like to roll off the lower frequencies as well. And when I would do that, I would usually roll off anywhere from 100 to 150 hertz. Now, I understand that sounds like a lot, but keep in mind you are speaking fairly close to this microphone, at times being about an inch away or less. So proximity can be a real issue with this microphone, but simply just rolling off the frequencies below 150 hertz tends to do the trick. Now, if it sounds still too boxy and bassy, try cutting out between 200 to 300. You kind of have to sweep that frequency range to find the sweet spot. Cut out anywhere from 1 to 2 dB after you have done both of these tips. That little simple correction can really enhance the audio and make it sound so much more natural and just more open. Typically, when I process the audio for these videos, I tend to do all 3 of those EQ adjustments, and I really like the way that it makes my audio sound. It makes it sound a little bit more natural, less bassy and boxy. However, that is all subjective. You might find that you like the way that that sounds, and if that's the case, then leave it be. I like to have a much more open, I guess you could say natural tone, and I find that that kind of helps with that. Now, another piece of advice that I can give you guys for those of you who are experiencing plosives on the Shure SM7B, again, we're speaking so close to this microphone, and it's no surprise, this microphone is no stranger to plosives. And I think that is due in part to the fact that this microphone comes shipped with this windscreen attached to it, and this thing does literally nothing. It looks cool, but it does nothing to the microphone. Now, you also get this windscreen included with the Shure SM7B, and it is a night and day difference. If you are experiencing plosives with this microphone, simply just swapping out the windscreens can oftentimes do the trick. I like the way that the audio sounds. It sounds the exact same between either windscreen that you use, and the only difference is I'm having less issues with plosives. Again, you're gonna run into those either way when you use this microphone, unless you use a legitimate pop filter in front of it, but that kind of defeats the purpose of the Shure SM7B. It's supposed to be all up in your face, in my opinion. That's what I feel like, at least. So I think that using this windscreen is a really great alternative to not having to use a bulky windscreen in front of it, but still having it be low-key and look nice. Again, this comes included with it, so if you're experiencing the plosives issue, just simply swap this out and then tilt your microphone so that it is not directly in front of you. Again, this is me speaking directly in front of the mic. This is me being a little bit off axis. It's not by a lot. Again, if I'm straight forward, it's probably only 45 degrees, 30 degrees, away from me. So it's still in your face and going to capture everything. It's going to sound exactly like it would if I was speaking in front of it directly. The only thing is it's not necessarily capturing all the breaths and the pops and plosives that would be otherwise recorded if you spoke directly in front of it. Now, this is something that I briefly want to get into. We really don't need to be spending all day talking about this, but it is impedance with this microphone. Now, real quick, what I want you to do is look up the specs on whatever interface you are using and check and see what the impedance is on the preamps on your interface. The Shure SM7B is rated at 150 ohms, and I would highly suggest with whatever interface or preamp that you are using, it is at least 10 times that of the microphone that you plan to record with. Now, I know that sounds a little confusing, but if we do some quick math, 10 times 150, that is at least 1.5K. Now, most interfaces are going to be well above that, so that is not an issue, but I know what can happen is, and I experienced this issue myself, and I found out the main culprit for why I was not getting the audio that I was hoping to get with this microphone was due to this simple knob here on the MPA2, the impedance knob. Now, I left it right in the middle at 600, which made it sound very dark. As soon as I moved it up to 1.2K and above, eventually settling on 3K, I noticed it sounded much, much cleaner. And that's because I'm using at least 10 times to 20 times that of the impedance that is rated on the Shure SM7B. Now, for those of you who are wondering what the impedance does on your microphone, how exactly that shapes the tone of the microphone, you can look at it simply like this. The lower the impedance, the more darker it's going to sound, and the higher the impedance, the more brighter and airier that it's going to sound. Again, this is all very subjective. If you're somebody with a higher pitch voice, you can probably get away with just sticking at 1.2 to 1.5K, but if you're somebody like myself and your voice is a little bit more on the darker side, it would make sense to use 1.5K and above, as high as you can go. Now on the Apollo Solo, the impedance on the preamps for this interface is 5.5K. It's very high, so it's enough impedance for this microphone that I am very happy with the quality that I get. If I was to swap this setup and go directly into the Pro MPA2 and use a lower impedance, something around 600 or even lower, it's going to sound less airy, less brighter sounding, and more darker sounding. Now that is not necessarily an issue for some people. For myself in particular, because of the way that my voice sounds, it makes more sense to have a higher impedance. So simply, the impedance just shapes the tone of the microphone. So if you need it to sound more airy, brighter sounding, you want a higher impedance. If you want it to sound darker, then you would want a lower impedance. There's actually a really good video out there by Sean Devine where he tests out the Cloudlifter Z, which is just essentially a Cloudlifter with a variable impedance, and it really does show you how important it is to set your impedance correctly on the Shure SM7B. It is an absolute make or break when it comes to using this microphone. For myself, I would want a higher impedance, anything from 3K and above. However, if you're somebody with a higher pitch voice, it might make more sense to stick around 1.5K and maybe even dip below. Just kind of play around with it and see which tone you like best with your microphone and your voice. All right, guys, this is just some of my advice so far with the Shure SM7B. Some of the tips that I would give to anybody who is struggling to get the sound that they want with their SM7B. Again, I've only had this mic now for a couple weeks, and I've had some time to experiment with it and see all the different combinations with the SM7B, which I like best. And this has just been so far what I have noted, some of the things that I've taken away with using this microphone so far. I've barely scratched the surface with this microphone. I still have a lot to learn and experiment on with this microphone, so I am learning along with you guys on how to properly use the SM7B and really get the most out of it. These are just some of the takeaways that I can give you guys with my experience so far with using this microphone. Anyways, guys, that about wraps it up. If you haven't already yet, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon beside it so that you can stay notified for whenever I drop my videos in the upcoming future. With that being said, I will see you all in my next one. Take care, everybody. Peace out.